who are opposed to no. But when I joined the Black Panther Party, the first documents that were given to me were the research that was done by John Henry Clark and Brown versus Board of Education, which indicated that if young African American children went to school hungry, then they were less likely to learn. If they went to school in tattered clothing with holes and you know, dirt all over them, they were less likely to learn because they were so conscious of their appearance. And if they went to school and there were they could not identify with the people in the books that they read or the pictures of the people that they saw in books, then they were less likely to learn because they could not draw the connections, you know. So the first thing I was trained to do was open up breakfast programs, you know, clothing programs. We had back then, sisters used to, had sewing machines and used to make dashikis and pants and you know, to help dress the kids, and we fed them. And a whole contingent of us were sent to Columbia University School of Black History to learn and bring it back and teach our children about our history, so they could know that, you know, we were great architects and great speakers and doctors and you know, lawyers, etc. But that's what I did. And then latter part of 1968, early part of 1969, there was this massive problem of drugs that entered the African American community. And I used to teach martial arts. I used to teach white belt and yellow belt in an after school program. And of course I was approached to become a part of this unit that was given the responsibility to get drugs out of the African American community almost overnight. Heroin had infested the African American community. And that's what we did. We were attached to a guy who said he used to be a drug courier for mafioso families, so he knew where drop spots were. Drop spots were places where drugs and money meet and are exchanged. And that's what we did. We identified these places, we did surveillance, and of course we raided them. We were very careful about our language. We didn't rob them, we raided them. And on one of these occasions in 1971, everything went awry. One of my comrades was shot in the arm. In turn, he shot back, and actually, you know, well, we didn't have military training, so he shot back, and it just so happens he shot the person in the, you know, right in the head, and the person died. My comrade fell, and from observation, I indicated my sense that he would survive. So I was under fire. There was more than 4 or 5 people shooting at me. That makes me believe it was an ambush. And I did what I had to do, but I got away. A week later, I was arrested at the Canadian border. I was taken to a state trooper barracks in Plattsburgh, and I was beaten. And the next thing I know, I'm coming awake. I came awake coming off of an airplane at LaGuardia Airport, and they say they got a confession out of me. And next thing I know, I'm standing up in front of, I'm sitting at a trial. I go through the trial. I got an all European American jury. I don't like to use the word white and black, you know, it don't say nothing. But I got an all European American jury. They found me guilty. I had no gun. Understand something? I had no gun. I wasn't there on the scene when it occurred. I don't even see how this happened. However, I was sentenced to death. I spent 2.5 years in the death house, and While I was in the death house, 4 things happened. Number 1, I subpoenaed to get transcripts to do my own legal work. And I ran across the autopsy report for my comrade because he had died. And remember I told you, when I left him, he had a arm shot. He had been shot in the arm. He was still breathing, but he was unconscious. I couldn't carry him, so I had to go. However, the autopsy report read that he had bruises and contusions from head to toe, that almost every bone in his body was broken, bruised, or fractured, and that he had a hole in his head the size of a grapefruit. I imagine they responded, they found out this was a police officer, they beat him with batons and kicked him with their steel-toe shoes, their boots, etc. And that's how he died, and no one said anything about it. In fact, the lawyer that, and I'll get to that, the lawyer that was assigned to me never even mentioned it. I was in the death house a year, and the district attorney in my case was disbarred for taking bribes from organized criminals. I was in the death house a year and a half, and the judge in my case was cited in an investigative magazine article in the New York magazine as being one of the 10 worst judges in New York State because of his favoritism to organized criminals. It was later learned that the lawyer who was assigned to represent me was a lawyer who frequented organized crime clients. That didn't get me out. Furman versus Georgia, the United States Supreme Court case that found that the methods used and the procedures used in reaching the determination of death was unconstitutional. Among other things, they said they also said it was racist, and they also indicated that it was totally unfair, and it's because it targeted African Americans and minorities in this country. I was released from the death house in 1974, and I was given 25-year life sentence. While I was in prison, I was politically active outside, so I was involved in a think tank group that brought in higher education, that made it possible for prisoners to have access to computers and radios and stuff like that for learning purposes. I taught African American history. I went from a office clerk to the first vice president of the NAACP. I ran the Political Action Committee and the Legal Redress Committee. Subsequently, I went and attended college, and I graduated from New York Theological Seminary with a master's degree in 1990. I was released on my first parole board in 1991. Since being out, I have worked my first 2 jobs. I worked as a paralegal in the law firm of Harry Kresge. I also, at the same time, was teaching at a public school here in Harlem, New York. In 1994, some guy with a record was molesting young girls with his fervor, and I was no longer allowed, because I had a felony, I was no longer allowed to teach. So I went and I got a job as a crisis intervention counselor. That's where I first met Sandy. She came to interview me. And I also was working with an NGO from the United Nations, a non-governmental organization out of Italy, who are still working on an international moratorium of the death penalty. You can look that up, perhaps get involved in it. It's called Hands Off Cain, from the biblical thing where Cain killed Abel and God said hands off, don't do nothing, don't be killing them as a result. In 1996, I joined up with some other people, mainly a woman called Sherry Wolf, and we founded the campaign to end the death penalty. We just left our convention in Texas, Austin, Texas. It was our 13th national convention. I'm here today, and I mean, my purpose today stems from research that I actually did while I was in prison. I mean, we all know that the prison industrial complex is a major problem in this country today. Over 2.5 million people are incarcerated. The objective, the goal is to decrease the inflow of people from our communities into the prison system, and of course, by some means, increase the outflow. How do we do that? We got to get our own communities together. You know, we got to wake our own selves up that the amount of crime that is happening in our communities must decrease, and that will take doing things that are geared toward giving our youth, number one, more constructive things to do, you know, and finding ways to bring people who are coming back, finding ways to successfully integrate them, reintegrate them into our communities. Until we do that, this system will maintain itself and it will grow, simply because not only does it incarcerate people, but it employs people and it assists entire communities. But you need to know as you leave here today that your young brother and your young friends are worth anywhere from $60,000 to $90,000 a year to the criminal justice system, you see. And that's a harsh way to look at it, but that is a fundamental reality. Having said that, thank you very much for having me here.
Thank you, Max. Before I introduce our next speaker, I want to note, many of you may know this already, but we're gearing up in the state of Pennsylvania to execute somebody Thursday night. Are people aware of that? There was almost an execution a little over a month ago, Terrence Williams, who got a stay. This was the man who had been sexually molested by the two men he had killed. The man who is scheduled to be executed Thursday night just received a denial from the Pennsylvania Supreme Court, so they are gearing up to execute him. This will be the first involuntary execution in the state of Pennsylvania in about 50 years. And I say involuntary because the couple of executions we've had within the last 50 years have been volunteers. You know what I mean by volunteer? Someone who's turned down their appeals and said, go ahead and kill me, whether, you know, they're depressed or suicidal, however you want to view that. So this is something, if it outrages you that's about to happen, see me afterwards and I can give you some contact information. There will be some vigils and demonstrations happening on Thursday. And our next speaker is going to be Mark Clements. As he's writing on the board, I'm going to give a brief introduction of Mark. I met Mark several years ago when he was released from prison in the state of Illinois. Has anybody heard of John Burge? John Burge is a police chief in Chicago who was accused of torturing 200 or more all African American and Latino young boys and men into false confessions, to the extent that he was brought up on charges. Many of those men, like Mark, one of John Burge's torture victims, served at age 16. He was tortured into a false confession. And when I say tortured, he was really tortured. I'll let him share if he wishes to more detail. But Mark spent the next 28 years in jail for a crime he did not commit, from the age of 16 until just several years ago. John Burge was finally brought up on charges and convicted. Anybody want to guess how long the sentence is? 4.5 years. And he gets to keep his pension at that. Okay? So, anyway, I don't want to take any more away from Mark. Let me introduce him. I'm just so outraged. I have to share some of this stuff. Mark Clements, my very dear friend, who is also on the board with me and with Lawrence with the campaign in the death penalty, also, like Lawrence, got out of jail, hit the ground running, has been giving back ever since. So, has my utmost respect.
Listen, because I notice there's some young people here. You have a right to remain silent. anything that you say will be held against you in a court of law. If you can't afford a lawyer, one will be appointed. Some of you in here is older, but some of you are younger. Now let me put them handcuffs on you and let me read you your rights. 16 years of age, would you fully understand those rights? No. This is how our criminal justice system picture children. You see little Timmy, little Tom, little Bob. Yeah, they committing crimes. But the bottom line of it is, do little Timmy, little John, do they understand the consequences of what they're doing? No, they're brain level. Do you still think the same way you thought when you were 10, 11, 12, 13? No. That means that you have potential to change. Each and every one of you inside of this room. But I was 16 years old, I was sentenced to 4 natural life sentences. Do y'all know what natural life means? That means never, I'm not even supposed to be looking at none of y'all. And what's tripped out about it is that it was all racially motivated. A lot of people say, oh man, racially motivated. Oh man, that's what they say, blacks, or if you want to say African American, or whatever you may want to call them, that's what they holler when they get arrested. Well, let's take 67 white detectives, and let's take 200 black people that are arrested by police, really black and Latino. I just want the record straight, because I put that name John Burge so you can write it down and Google it and understand who John Burge is. Have any of you in this room ever heard of John Burge? Very important, because there's some mothers in this room, and you may have some John Burges in Pennsylvania. And if you ever run into this situation, you're going to need to know how to get out of it. I was 16 years old, taken down to a police station in Chicago. I didn't know about no John Burge, wasn't trying to know of no John Burge in 1981. I was a kid, just wanting to enjoy life. Serious crime occurred in Chicago. 4 people died in an arson fire. As a result of the arson fire, police rounded up African Americans, took them down to the police station, and it's the same method. Whoever the weakest link, that's your crime. So you may be hearing and you may say, well, man, torture, what constitutes torture? Men, this question is directed to you. If I either hit you in your genitals or your testicle area, have you locked inside of a room, what are you going to do? If I grab them, you handcuffed, and I grab them, you going to say your mama committed the crime. But we are adult people in a nation that says, if I didn't commit the crime, no way in the world am I going to confess to it. Come on. This is the systematic racism that it grew because it allowed John Burge to grow. John Burge was a detective that first joined the police force out of Vietnam, out of a torture camp in 1971. The first act of torture occurred in Chicago in 1972. all white detectives under his command. Should have raised red flags. It did. But it was a way for the criminal justice system to say, well, guess what? We solving crimes and we locking them up. So what many people see today is the product of the police got it wrong. So that left someone out in society, guess what? Who shouldn't have been here. So now everybody's saying, man, what's wrong with society? Because taxpayers, our mothers, our grandmothers, generations on down, we allowed this to occur. And we didn't just allow it to occur to just anyone, but we allowed it to occur to our children. So what do people call genocides? Genocides can come in two forms. Either I can kill you or I can lock you up. Because when I lock you up, guess what? You voiceless. Everybody gonna say, well, guess what? He's just saying that to get out. But this is a document that was recently filed and will be heard in Chicago on the 14th. This is a document where that you still have over 100 African American men still in prison, despite the fact that John Burge is in prison, despite the fact that it is all type of evidence pointing to John Burge that he tortured people. But our criminal justice system says, well, it's not good enough to let you out of prison. So now you got to fend there. You got to sit there. You know what's in prison? Nothing. You've heard that great white lie. And when I say white lie, that's the old saying of a fantastic lie that everyone draw off of. Man, they can go to prison, man, they got air conditioning. I suffered every summer. I used to say, please don't come summer. It's like 115 degrees in prison. Ain't no air conditioning. So you just sitting there with a little fan turning. And you know what that little fan do is spit out hot air. So now you hemmed in the belly of the beast and you can't get out. Your mama can't get you out. Your father can't get you out. I don't care if you even know the judge. He ain't going to get you out. It's all about profiting off of poor people. It may be one rich person ever in the history of the death row system ever been placed on death row. Maybe, and that's hard to find, but you can find literally many men, and they're all poor, and they're there because, guess what? The attorney is overloaded with cases. He can't investigate these cases correctly. In my situation, hell, maybe if I just had him to just get up and go investigate the case, I've been home long time ago. Long time ago. Because all of the evidence was already existed. It took basically a large law firm to have to step in and to clean up behind a public defender system. I know many of you have ambitions of achieving, and this is good because it teaches you one thing. If your notion about the criminal justice system has any fairness in it, it must mean that you're going to be a part of the criminal justice system to change it. Because it has no fairness. And for my Caucasian brothers and sisters, they locking you up too. Because it's a system, it's a pipeline. And it leads right from here straight to prison. Believe it or not. They don't care about, I saw the brother here earlier, they don't care about locking him up. They don't care about going, I'm talking about from the youngest to the oldest. It's all about a money profit. So when you go to prison, guess who you have? No one but your mother, and I do literally mean your mother. Girlfriend, she may stick around for a year or two. But now you're talking about 4 natural lives. Hey, baby, you gonna wait on me? 4 natural lives? She got a life if she wanna have a life. So that means she has to separate from you. So all you have is your mother. So what they eventually do is to connect with organizations or groups, and they literally suffer for many years before something finally creep out. It's like a dog, and you finally find the bone that he hid like 50 years ago. And you say, oh, there's that bone. That's the way the criminal justice system operates. They can clearly know, and they'll come in the courtroom and say, hey, how you doing, little Tim? The stuff that they should have revealed to you, they got right in their hand. 15, 16, maybe 20, 25 years. Oh, no, we never even seen that. Gee, gosh, I have no memory recollection. Like Ronald Reagan, in his days, he would always say, oh, sure, I don't remember. The criminal justice system don't remember. And they don't remember because they play a game with your life. Not everyone in prison is innocent. And that ain't my point. My point is this. John Birch and his tortures is not an African American issue. It's a human rights issue. In the same way that you get up to protect your right to vote is the same way that you as a people should be able to get up and to protect the rights of your children. Because if you don't protect them, who gonna protect them? That's why the system says, don't whoop little Timmy. Let us handle it. Do you know their way of handling it? It's only one way. They're going to say, well, little Timmy is a nuisance to society. Lock him up. So they're going to put him in a juvenile facility. So now he becomes to be a part of the system. So you're talking about, hey, little Timmy, I know you've been locked up, and I believe in the American way, the American dream. You're going to go in there and get rehabilitated. Ain't no rehabilitation in no prison. Unless you call locking someone inside of a jail cell. That's all it is. You just locked up inside of a jail cell. Oh, I'm going to improve. I'm going to be a better person. How? They ain't teaching you nothing. So you have to educate yourself. So you just sit there. It's like being in your room when you was a kid and your mom say, hey, listen here. Go to your room and lock the door. And you go in that room and you lock that door, and you can't even do that for 40 minutes because you be peeping around the corner. See, the bottom line of it is this is reality because it's playing games with human beings' lives. Today is a day of importance where that each and every one of you in this room, if you have the opportunity, should get up and vote. I ain't going to tell you which way to vote, but it's very important. We can't vote. Duh. So you say, well, hey, been to prison, got out. Oh, they should just be good, my golly, good people. No, the system don't look at it. They do this stuff for a reason. And the reason is to cut your throat. So you get out and you say, oh, well, little Timmy can get out and he can go get him a good job and he's going to make it. No! You forever viewed by everyone. They say, well, where you been? Prison? Oh, hell, sure. You must have did something in your lifetime. That's our system. That's going to be, and I hate to put it this way, I'm not trying to stereotype no one, but all of your children is stereotyped by the system. Because they got jail cells right now built. They sit there tomorrow, well, we're overcrowded. We really don't have no room to put them. Let them commit a crime and see they don't have nowhere to put them. Have you ever known them to say, well, hell, we don't have no room in the prison system. We have to let Bob the rapist out and Tim the mass killer. No, they have room. It's like a hotel that never run out of room. And it's very important. I follow news. And here is just as corrupt police-wise as it is in Chicago. And I'm going to tell you one thing. Because half of your administrators within your police force do your homework, where they come from. Ramsey, when he was the police chief here in Pennsylvania, do your homework where he come from. Come from Chicago. Oh, well, hell, he was African American with freckles. Uh-huh. They all covered it up for John Burge. It was African Americans who covered it up. They didn't want to be fired. So they say, well, hell, I don't know. Sure, go in there and beat them some more. And that's what happened. So now you go before a judge and you sit there. I was 16 years old. I didn't know nothing about no genitals and testicles. So I walked into the courtroom and said, hey, your judge, oh, hold up. He grabbed my wee-wee. I'm pretty sure we all know that term. They looked at me like I was crazy. Hey, take them on out of here, you know, and talk to them in the side room because that's stuff they don't want released. Please don't be the puppet to the system through your lack of action. Once again, my name is Mark Clements. There was a sign-up sheet that came around. Please put y'all information so we can stay in contact with y'all. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Lawrence's wrongful incarceration began in 71. Mark's began in 81. Our next speaker, Amir began in 91. So every 10 years, one of our guests here was wrongfully incarcerated. I want to make the point before I introduce Amir that Mark and Lawrence and Amir are good people giving back to society in spite of the system, not because of the system. I appreciate Mark making the comment that rehabilitation does not really occur behind bars, okay? It's more of a holding cell, and people have to educate themselves, and that's what they did. They took it upon themselves to educate themselves and reach out and become better people in spite of the system. So don't be mistaken that this wrongful incarceration made them to who they are today. They were able to do that in spite of that. Our next speaker is a friend of mine who I met a couple years ago after he was released from 20 years of a wrongful incarceration. And he is a victim of the Rockefeller drug laws. Okay, he's part of the one of the victims of the drug war, and he's going to share a little bit about that with you. And once again, Amir, like our other two speakers here, hit the ground running and has been an activist, a student, community organizer, you name it, he's been involved. So, and I appreciate him as well as all of our speakers today volunteering their time to come here and speak. So next will be Amir.
Hi, everybody. How you doing? We in school, so we're going to do a social experiment. All right? Who with that? Everybody with doing a social experiment? Raise your hands. All right. Everybody. Okay. Professors, y'all not with us? All right. Raise your hand. All right. I need you to help me out. I want everybody to go in their pockets and give me all your money. I'm serious. Let's go. All your money, credit cards, I need everybody to give it to me. Let's start from that side. Come on, baby. No? All right, no, come on. Trust me, what's happening?
I don't have anything.
You don't have anything? I mean, you got something. All right, remember that question. Remember, a dollar, it counts, it counts. What is your civic responsibility? That's what I want everybody remembering here. What is your civic responsibility? Okay? What do you want your obituary to say? She was fly. He was that dude. What do you want to say? My mom's is good. I love her. All that's good, but how do you want people to remember you by? Are you going to do that same stereotypes that got him incarcerated? The same stereotypes that got Lawrence incarcerated, me incarcerated? And my little research going around of what these brothers did, and me being the young, or not the youngest, well, I am the youngest, that is going through, I forgot what the heck I was just going to say. One thing that I know for sure, that's it. The one thing that's going to hurt society the most is peer pressure. I hear you saying going to criminal justice, right? Someone here. It's peer pressure in there. If you become a cop, it's peer pressure. And within this faculty, it's peer pressure. It's peer pressure even being around here in your students. So, are you going to be an individual, or are you going to follow that trend that's on TV all day long? That's what you have to ask yourself. What's going on? What type of education you going to give yourself? Or you going to be a follower? You going to stand out? Are you going to be the person that says, yo, what's going on? American interest. Tell me what's American interest in Afghanistan.
There's involved there because of the war.
Okay. The war's for?
The war is to defend democracy. But it's also has to do with, what they think Afghanistan, how they think Afghans should live.
How they think. Okay, so you're telling me, what are we there for?
I'm telling you, and I know I'll get knocked for this, that we're in another place that we don't belong.
There you go. All right. Why was we in Iraq? Huh? This is American interest that they spending billions for, right? American interest, but no one here can tell me, Willie, what's American interest? I thought American and church is supposed to be for the people, not for the few. So again, what is your civic responsibility? Do you know every level of your elected officials here? Do you know every level? City council? Do you know every level?
Oh.
Do you know? Is it? All right, so now, why don't you please give me your money? At least y'all know who's here. At least you know I'm going to take it. These other people, you're just giving it and giving and giving it, you're not really saying nothing about it. You're not really doing it. You're following the status quo. You're following the trends. Again, prejudice and racism, peer pressure is the biggest thing that's going to hurt, and that continues to hurt the United States. Right now, being incarcerated, the women are being incarcerated on a 2-to-1 basis. All right, we dead, we ran out already. They got enough black men, they got enough everybody else. They want the rest now. And if you're not middle class, meaning if you yourself is not making at least 6 digits, upper 6 digits, because we got cops and everybody else thinking they making $50, $60, $70 now. They think they middle class. I'm gonna say, yo, you middle class. It says you're expendable. All right, and all them things. So what are you going to do? There's a lot that you can do, and you can actually start with yourself and with your neighbors. One, get informed. You got to get informed of the issue. To keep me in prison for 2 decades, New York spent $1 million for nonviolent. They kept me in prison for $1 million. So what could I have done with $1 million? I could have went to Oxford, got my degree, right? Come back, start a small business, hire 7 people, buy my house, put $200,000 in the bank, hire 7 people, and still give the state $200,000. Yes, I added that up. All right. Now I'm one of over 30,000 in New York State, so that's over 30 million, at least on the top of the scale, not including individuals like my big brother here who was on death row, which would cost even more for time. Now let's add that up, just New York State, so that's about underestimating 67,000 people, so that's $670 million they spend just to incarcerate. All right, now let's multiply that across the states, all of the United States, and this states and everything else. Let me ask you one question. Who has tuition problems here? Huh? Y'all straight, right? Y'all don't need no money. Huh? What is your civic responsibility then? Where are you going to direct these funds? Remember, racism, prejudice, peer pressure catches everybody one way or another. As y'all just hear in New York now, the Central Park 5 case, is come alive. These are 6 teenagers convicted of rape and killing of a woman, and they had nothing to do with it. Several years later, they got released, and they still don't want to say we messed up because of the money that's going to be associated with this and the image of saying we did it wrong. But if you're a judge and you're supposed to be in there, are you covering up? Are you doing that peer pressure? I'm not going to let this guy go to jail because this is my golf partner. Or are you going to do what you're there for, actually be an official for the people? How will you be remembered? You're going to be remembered in your career as that one that got all these convictions, no matter what? How are you going to be remembered? What are you going to bring back to society so society can advance more? What are you going to be remembered? I put this on the board here because we're visuals. In New York State, they did something called a non-traditional approach to criminal social justice. It was a plan of political action that was actually done by prisoners that showed the disparity in the criminal justice system, but it showed it in a space where political forces can take place and you could look at it and be like, whoa, something's not correct there. All right, New York State, of course I'm not an artist as you see, is a big place, right? And New York City is right here. In New York State, there's 150 assembly districts, but only, guess how many prison districts, somebody give me a guess, how many prison districts are affected by the prison system in New York? Come on, give me a guess, you look smart. Yeah. 150 prison districts, okay, no, next guess? Come on, give me a guess. Oh, somebody else give me a guess, this is college, guess, you can't be wrong. 4, a little bit more. 23. So that means there's 127 districts that are not affected by the prison system, and only 23 districts are where all the people are taken and put into prison. And out of them 23 districts, over 85% come from New York City. So we're saying there's over 60, right now there's about 59,000, 52,000 locked up. At my height, when I was inside, it was 72. Over 85% of them, so that means underestimating 50,000 alone come from New York City. And not only is from New York City, if you break them assembly districts down even more, it becomes 11 neighborhoods. Right. 11 hoods, right? When you hear the South Bronx, South Queens, yeah, those are all the they're just gathering people up and bringing them into prison. And prison system from this part on, in New York, from here on, depends on prisons. It's a jobs program. So these elected officials that there used to be IBM up here, Xerox, Ford, there used to be farms and everything up there. They kept getting outsourced, kept taking them away, kept getting them away, and they need jobs. Everybody is allowed to get a job. Everybody's supposed to have a job. But you replace them with prisons, and now you have to put them in. So this is no longer, we can say this is no longer a racist issue, it's actually a social issue, because now you know that there is no crime. You're looking for the next population, and the next population, I tell you, is females. It's not even New York State, it's across the country. So it's not for New York State, it's across the country. Your young woman, white, black, not even young, they're arresting you, they're locking you up. You check my Facebook page, you got a cop right there kicking a white woman in the face. Fact. But are you going to be that judge that says, oh, that's not evidence, I don't know why he's kicking in the face, he's trying to wipe her tear off. But they have that. One of people in the campaign in Death Row, his son, Grant, was with somebody out in California where the son was handcuffed, clearly on the floor, handcuffed, and the cop ran up and shot him. And he was found not guilty. How could this happen? Is this a racist issue? Could be. Prejudice issue? Could be. But it's also a social issue. The careers that you have, you're going to have certain characteristics that's associated with it, that either you continue with them characteristics that's going to degrade society, or you're going to change and say, no, I'm actually an official for the people. What are you going to do? What is going to be your civic responsibility? Voting counts. Run your own officials, your own people in there. Run your moms. Run the lady in the block that everybody knows. Oh, I don't know nothing about politics. But you know everybody. So just go. Do something. If y'all got churches and 2, 3 churches is in the same block and they don't talk to each other, what are you going to do about it? You know a masjid down the block from another masjid, what are you going to do about it? How come they're not talking with each other? What's wrong? and it's actually you that can do something about it. All right. My story is, again, I got convicted for 25 to life for the Rockefeller drug laws. I had exactly what I have on me now, nothing. I knew individuals that was in the game, drugs, all that, but I did not do this. They wanted me to testify against the bigwig dude because I knew him. Yeah, I know, but it's not my place to, testify against anybody. You police, do your police stuff, Long story short, I was tortured for 6 hours. I couldn't walk and eat for like 6 months afterwards. I went down from 240 to 162 pounds. And after I started healing, I made a promise that I would never have anybody touch me again without letting somebody know whether I killed somebody or not. I didn't care. So I had a lot of hate built up into me. So I got myself back up to 250 solid on like the super prisoner man. My squats was 500, my bench was 400. I was working out 3-4 times a day just doing that. And letting prisoners, Muslims, anybody know, if I just think you're coming towards me, it's on. I wouldn't care. Ward, hey, yo, listen, Ward, I need to talk to you. All right, you want to walk away? Or you bring him over here. I'm like, da-da-da. I was like real mad and mean and upset and have a right to be. How you going to take me away from society at 21 years old? Just turned 21. For 25 to life. I'm like, For drugs? Wait, whoa. How did I get on the level of John Gotti and I'm in a super maximum security prison? I'm like, damn, this is a 40-foot wall for real. It's a wall inside a wall inside a wall where I was at. Where he was at, it was a wall inside a wall, inside a wall, inside a wall, up top somewhere. Well, he probably only seen the sky, am I correct? That's it. That is the sky. That's it. And you going to talk about come home as a citizen? Rehabilitated? Most people are rehabilitated. This is no attack on my brothers and anything, but what does the word rehabilitation mean? It means return to the condition prior to entering that institution. So if you're a hustler, pimp, or whatever, and you go inside and you want to be a good guy, you're rehabilitated. Oh, good. I can go home and do the same thing because I was rehabilitated. They know these programs don't work because there is no programs. The programs that work was education, college program, where they know over 85% of individuals who receive a college degree never get locked up again. They never return to prison. You don't even hear about them. So a lot of them guys is out there starting their own businesses, working in quiet, and a lot of them are ashamed and don't even tell people that they're incarcerated or was because of the phobia and the stigma there. But in New York State, there were 71 prisons, and it only cost $7 million to keep college there. It was like, nah, that's too much. But in New York City, this year alone, the New York City Police Department is gearing to spend $735 million to settle wrongful arrests and harassment suits. Where's these resources going to? Why do you have $1 billion set aside because of this harassment that you know is going to take place to be quiet with somebody? So something has to change in society. You either have to vote, which everybody can do. You have to run your own people, which everybody could do. And if you don't speak up, silence is consent everywhere. If you don't like what's happening at the school, mouth off. At my school, believe it, the principal, the dean, everybody know me. Hey, what's going on, man? No ifs, buts, and ands about it. Even the cops in my neighborhood know me. Because when they pull me over, I smile so much, I kill them with kindness, I give them so much ID, and they be like, that's enough. No, it ain't. Here go more ID. Here go more. That's enough. No, it ain't. Here go some more ID. When you finish, that's enough. No, here go some cards of people I know. You know what I'm saying? Are you finished? No, man, here goes some more. Now, while you doing that, you want some coffee or something like that, officer? They're like, huh? And at the end, they always like, wow, I wish we had more people like you. I'm like, no, you don't. No, you don't. But you make them complaints, too, against them officers. You let them know. My parole officer, when I had her, she was like, oh, this guy again? When I walked in, it was like, oh, listen, Sir Williams Armor's here. Yo, come straight in. I was like, eh. And everybody's like, yo, what is wrong with you? What are you in there? You snitching? No, man, I got a big-ass mouth. So when I go in there, I'm telling them what they supposed to do, what the rules say. You're going to follow these rules because I got to follow these rules, right? Oh, well, we got you on a curfew. Why you got me on a curfew? For what reason? Well, because you was arrested. Well, I was arrested in the daytime, so that means I can't go out in the daytime. I'm allowed to roam the streets. It was like, what? I'm like, the rules. I mean, the rules. They said I couldn't get a car. I mean, I'm a driver's license. I'm like, yeah, all right, I'm going to get a driver's license. They said, you can't. Why? Because we said so. Why? Because you can't. Tell me why. If I have vehicular manslaughter or something like that, okay, if I'm running around being chased, Smokey the Bandit, all right, why can't I get a license? License help me get established, help me get ID so the police can leave me alone so I can get a job, so you tell me why. Because we said so. Yeah, well, I'm going to get licensed. You know, arrest me, do whatever you want. If you strongly committed to yourself, committed to doing better, it will work your way. I'm a living testament. I came home 90 days later. I was in school. I got a 3.1 GPA. I'm a major social work, sociology. I help with the professor. I help talk people. I go to the courts, talk to youth if I can. Trying to write a program. I got a few endorsements because my thing is when I came home, before I came home, I said, what can I do to help people? Because I first was going to say I'm going to come home and kill 25 cops. That was my goal. I'm coming home, killing 25 law enforcement. You took my life. So from what I'm coming home 49 from 21. I'm like, all right, I'm gonna go kill some cops. Only thing I do is do what? Go to the precinct with a broom, right? I'm a Jeff. They're gonna love that guy. I'm just gonna blast everybody and just tell them, hey, I did this one. The other crime I didn't do. So all you families suffer like mine. Y'all wanna kill me? Whatever. As long as them cops is dead. But if I did this from a non-violent offense, right? And I was only tortured for 6 to 8 hours. What about individuals like my big brother here, Mark? Whose genitals was, he didn't even tell y'all, was placed on a battery cable and turned on, he was electrocuted. I shouldn't have said it, but that hurts. You know, every time I with both of them, I write Christ. So by me being the youngest, I'm out here doing more and more work. I'm a vocal dude, I got a big mouth, and I'll give y'all my info, Facebook, and if we can come out here and help, not only a member of the campaign and the death penalty, I'm a member of the campaign and the new Jim Crow. For Michelle Alexander's book, we actually have our endorsement. We got a website, and we established here in New York, Riverside Church, and we're trying to, unify everybody on the East Coast because it's not going to be a black or white thing. It's a social thing. And white people in certain neighborhoods, if you find out that, look at the hurricane that happened there, you're going to tell me that 707 million could import levees to fix New York or whatever, but we having our resources where it's not helping everybody in society, and we have to stop. We have to stop that 1% attitude because there's even bougie people here in school. So, peace and blessings, huh?
Thank you. Thanks to all our speakers. We have almost half an hour left for questions and answers, and I hope that we have many people who will take advantage of that. Also, before I forget, I want to let you know I have our recent newsletter called The New Abolitionists from the Campaign to End the Death Penalty. I'll leave them here on the way out. If you want to grab them, please feel free. I might have enough for everybody, or I might be a little short, so you can make sure you grab one if you want. And there's also information on here if you would like to get on our listserv to receive information. I live in Delaware, even I teach at Rowan, as Dr. Bowman mentioned, in New Jersey. And I head up the Delaware chapter of the Campaign in the Death Penalty. We don't have a Pennsylvania chapter, so if anybody's interested in starting one, let me know. Or if you want to come down to Delaware, maybe 40 minutes from here, not too bad in Wilmington, you're more than welcome. All right, had to get that plug in before we start the Q&A. I can play Donahue, which shows my age. I should probably say something. And run around with the microphone if need be, or if you feel like you can project your voice. Anybody have any comments, questions?
That's right. That's a great American way. Be quiet.
in the blue, and then up here in the white chapel.
Well, what exactly is the difference between a maximum security prison
Well, I'll just say one thing to you, all right? I was in the death house for about a year, maybe 7 months. And a new deputy superintendent of programs came into the facility, just came to, as a tour of the prison. And he walked up to the cell they kept me in, because I don't claim like my cell. I don't do that. And I didn't do that for 20 years. But anyway, he came up to me and he stuck his hands in the bars. And I looked at his hands and I reached out and I grabbed it. And when I grabbed it, I realized that I had not touched another human being since the moment I walked in there a year, 6 months ago, till then. That's the difference.
Sandra.
Our next person who just walked out, she'll come back. Did you have a comment first?
I know each of you said you were wrongly accused and served time. Now, you didn't serve your complete sentence, so how did you get out of prison, for one? And for two, if you were wrongly accused and got out ahead of time, how do you still have records?
Well, it's different situations. For me, I'm still fighting. And what happens is, I was supposed to say this, I forgot. With all these cases, as Mark pointed out, the average person, when the court says something's wrong, like, oh, something's up, it takes about 17 to 21 years. So the court will say, oh, something wrong. With my conditions, they changed the laws in New York and let me go. So the sentence was reduced. So I'm still fighting mines on the outside. But it's an uphill battle because now once you get it totally overturned, what's the price to pay to take somebody's years for 2 decades? So a lot of people will get it off their record with the, sign this print that you can't sue. That's what 9 chances out of 10. I know it might happen with me when we continue. I'm an intern in the DA's office, so that's ironic too. So I'm talking to them, and they were like, "Well, let's review your case." And after they review it, they don't say nothing. I'm like, "Yeah, I expect that." So it's different things that happen.
Okay. How many of you in this room watched Dr. Phil that dealt with Sarah Kusan? Is that her last name?
Kusan.
Kusan. It was just on recently.
The 17th of October.
The 17th of October. This is a kid that killed a man that was pimping her.
When she was 16.
Right, 16 years old. He started pimping her when she was about, 11 to 13 years old. This is a nation that believes that locking this young kid up and giving her a natural life sentence is adequate. No. The system, my sister, how they play this is this way. I was 16 years old. Did 28 years. So if you do the math, and I know you know how to count. I'm just saying, you do the math. That means I was 40-some years old. So let me just give you a real brief example. I'm going to take this sheet of paper. You in prison. Let's say this is your mom's and she's dying. And I come here, you locked up for the rest of your life. What you going to do? You going to sign that paper. Thank you. Right or wrong? See, so this is the thing, and the reason why I'm trying to be vocal with some of you is to give you the real importance as to really what's going on. Because let me tell you, one thing it is to be running in the community and running with little Tim and running little Bob, and some of them are committing crimes. And then you say, well, man, little Tim in prison because, man, he was a little bad little something. But, okay, now they accuse little Tim of a crime. Then, okay, you go and you say, well, I think little Tim did it because, man, he kicked me in my back when I was a kid. So now, because little Tim kicked you in your back, now that makes him out of a murderer? That's what they do. They stereotype. And when me tell you the power of the ink pen, if I'm a policeman and I don't like you, guess what I can do to you? I can put anything on that paper. Only young, naive people sit here and say, well, shoot, they got to give me a trial. The policeman going to say, listen here, this is what she said. Officer blah, blah going to say, this is what she said. And the next one going to say that. And you know what your attorney's going to tell you? They're going to say, listen here, I think we better cop out. See, so please understand the difference of that. You got many brothers and especially sisters as we've been sitting here talking,